Welcome back. This week I'm going to be speaking about Buatsi Parker from last weekend. I'm going to explain what I feel about the fight and the fact that I don't think it was as wide as people were making out. I thought it was a very close competitive fight watching it on the night. When I got home and watched it again, I had to watch it with the commentary on, and I put the commentary on mute. And it's no disrespect to the people commentating, I know them all and I consider them all mates, to be honest with you, but it was completely biased and it was completely wrong. And watching it back without the commentary and watching that fight on mute, it's a totally different fight. I did a very close fight. I did 5-all, 5 apiece or 6-4 either way, and I mean that either way. A lot of people are saying Buatsi didn't win the fight, but a lot of Buatsi's work was going really unnoticed and not really spoken about on the commentary. There's a couple of times when the fighters land jabs simultaneously at the same time and only Parker's is spoken about, whereas Buatsi's actually landed and looked good. I think Buatsi's jab's very underrated, and I think on the night he used it really well. Sometimes he was stepping in with it a little bit too much and falling, overshooting, let's say, but he can be better at that. He can be better in the future, I think. I think Parker boxed a great fight, and I feel for him in a way because, you know, and I know that feels when you feel like you've been on the wrong end of a decision, but watching it back, I think possibly it was a draw, possibly Parker may have done enough, but honestly, I think if you watch the fight without the commentary on, it's a different fight, and unfortunately that's not what we should be talking about, but we are going to be talking about that, and I'm going to get into detail about the tactics of the fight, how the fight went right, how the fight went wrong for Buatsi as well. What's next for Buatsi? Where does he go from here? What's next for Parker? That should open up a lot of doors for him. I think his stock's risen in the loss that he's had. I don't think he's come out of it with too many criticisms and too many people who are going to be knocking him after that. I think that he's going to get a lot of praise. The doors are open. I think there's a potential fight there for the European title with Lyndon Arthur, and the future looks bright for him, although it probably won't feel like that at the time. So the performance from Buatsi was under par, obviously. I felt like he was stepping in too much with his jab on the night. He's obviously heavily reliant on the jab, training with Virgil Hunter, being based over there in Oakland and boxing the American way and doing it the American way, which is obviously everything off the jab, everything behind the jab. He's obviously very strong, Buatsi, and all of Virgil Hunter's fighters are. They're physically in great shape every time they get in the ring, and strength-wise, knowing firsthand from fighting Andre Ward, they're unbelievably strong inside when they fight. Maybe not the biggest of puncher, Ward, at the time, but what he lacked in the power, he made up for in the strength. Buatsi, similar. I feel like he's lost a fair bit of his punch power, but he's gained a lot of strength inside, and I'm sure when you mix it up inside with him, he's obviously strong, but I feel like Joshua's lost a little bit of that ruthlessness and a little bit of that aggressiveness, what made him or makes him, I think, a very dangerous and good fighter. And I think he's he's thinking a bit too much and needs to just relax and let it flow. That's just my opinion from what I've seen on the night. Parker's tricky, Parker's awkward, he's not ideal to look good against. I think when I was fighting, he'd have been probably one of my worst nightmares to fight against, being very tall, rangy, and I think a fighter knows that you know what style is not good for you or what style you'd be good with, and he would have been someone I probably would have struggled with. I think Buatsi found it hard finding the target too often. I think he was getting messed up inside, and Parker going to the floor I didn't really like, and I felt the referee was a bit weak on the night, and unfortunately and a bit awkwardly I was on TalkSport on Monday with Parker and had to explain this on the night, like if you're going down and choosing to go down, then the referee should eventually be able to give you the count for taking a knee. It's exactly the same as taking a knee if you're just choosing to go down whenever he's getting inside. But he didn't, and what happened, and the fight was, as I said, in my opinion, it was a close fight, and it's a different fight if you watch it without the commentary on, and we'll get onto the commentary shortly. But tactically, I just think it was a frustrating night for Buatsi. I think he can and will be better than that. I think Parker can actually probably be a bit better than that. I think he was a bit negative on the night himself, probably a little bit tired. He looked tired at times in there, but he can be better and fitter than that. He's only just moved up to the limit, to the light heavyweight limit, and he's got a long and hopefully prosperous future for himself in the light heavyweight division, where he can do exactly what he said he wants to do and secure his family and secure his little girl's future. So the commentary on the night, it's frustrating for me because I know them, I know them all, and Barry Jones, Adam Smith, obviously Adam's been a good friend of mine for years. Barry's a lovely fellow, I always got on with him. I think he's knowledgeable, I think he's a very good commentator also. I think Adam's one of the best out there at what he does. I just felt it let the viewer be swayed in a different direction than what actually was happening in the fight on the night. And listen, a lot of people are swayed by commentary, and it's very hard to not be swayed by it sometimes when you're listening to it, because on a fight like that, the way I always look at fights like that is, I've doubted myself a few times. I'm watching a fight and I'm thinking, I'm seeing something totally different than what the commentary is saying. And usually when that happens, it's a controversial one. And it's a controversial one, but when you go back and watch it actually with no sound on and see the good work that Buatsi's doing, then you realise that it actually isn't that wide a fight. There's a lot of good stuff what Buatsi was doing, what was going unnoticed and not being called out. And both fighters would land a couple of jabs at the same time, but only Parker's would really be spoken about. And only Parker, oh, good shot by Parker. But then you'd hear maybe Barry Jones say once or twice, Buatsi actually landed a good jab there as well. And I just feel like the commentary was a little pro Parker or maybe a little bit negative Buatsi. And it's when Buatsi is expected to come out and do really well against Parker and blast him out of there, which I felt he would have done. I felt Buatsi would have got him out of there mid to late rounds. I said that before the fight. I can't go back on me saying now, on me prediction now, because that's what I said. But on the night when he's not doing well, rather than sort of praising Parker for doing so well, they go a little bit negative towards Buatsi because he's not doing as well as everyone expected. But he was still doing enough, in my opinion, to pinch some of those rounds, to take some of those rounds. And a couple of the rounds, Parker was pinching himself and he was robbing himself, where he just landed a few little sneaky shots and maybe stealing. It was tough to score, it was. And we'll get onto the scoring shortly on how I had it and what I think the scoring was. But it was tough to score because there wasn't that much happening, if you know what I mean. And I've looked back at the CompuBox stats, and Parker's slightly ahead on the CompuBox stats, but it doesn't really tell a full picture of the fight because a lot of the shots that were landing and scoring heavily for Parker were body shots, which I feel a lot of them are landing on the elbows and a lot of them are landing on the arms of Buatsi and not properly landing. And listen, people are humans, we all make mistakes. I might be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times. I'll probably be wrong plenty of times again in the future, but I think the commentary was wrong on the night and it's got to be called out and it's got to be mentioned. I'll have howlers when I'm on commentary in future, I'm sure, and other people will do it, but I just feel it was a lot pro Parker and not enough of recognising the work that Buatsi was actually doing. So if you want to watch the fight and go back and watch it without the commentary on, I guarantee you'll see a different fight. Now the decision, I scored it probably 5 rounds apiece on the night, and watching it, I was, when the cut before the decision was announced, I was saying this is close, and the decision come out and I was listening to the commentary saying it was so wide, and I heard other people saying they're going to give Buatsi a couple of rounds maximum maybe, but I saw a different fight. And when a decision was being announced before they mentioned any single scorecards, I was saying out loud to the people by me, this is a close fight, and I wouldn't be surprised either way. It's a very close fight because obviously it's a different fight when you're not listening to commentary and when you're watching it yourself, and you can try and make your own decision, and it's tough to do because they're very knowledgeable people on that table. And they're knowledgeable commentators and co-coms, and they've been around the world and commentated on some of the biggest fights ever. But I just felt like I was watching a different fight, and usually when that happens, it's a controversial scorecard and there's a bit of an outrage over it because they think the wrong man won or the right man won, lost, but it doesn't work that way. And on the night, I just felt Buatsi was having a lot of his work not really called and not really praised or appreciated or acknowledged, and he was landing the jab really well, and the jab's key in most fights, and the jab's key in boxing, and it's the most important punch in boxing. And I felt like a lot of Buatsi's good work with his jab and off the jab was going unnoticed, as I said. But the decision, I wouldn't complain with 6-4 either way. 5-all was probably the fair result in my opinion, but I think there was 3 rounds in it that were very, very hard to score. There was a couple that were very easy to score, and a couple were easy in Buatsi's favour, and a couple were easy in Parker's favour. But listen, it was one of them fights. That's why we're all talking about it. That's why it's still getting spoken about now. But what happens now for both fighters is what's going to be the most important and the most crucial from that fight, because I'd hate to see Parker suffer as a result, and I'd hate to see Buatsi suffer as a result. It's not his fault what happened, and it's not Parker's fault either. What's next for the fighters then? Buatsi, I think we'll be looking obviously at the winner of Benavidez and Yard. I think the Anthony Yard fight's a great fight for him. I just can't see Yard coming through against Benavidez, and if he does, then it's obviously perfect for him. It's perfect to be made there, but obviously Callum Smith my brother will want something to say about that. It should Anthony Yard win. I can't see Anthony Yard winning. I can only see a Benavidez win, and a devastating one probably at that. I think obviously then Benavidez isn't probably going to take too much of a step back to fight Buatsi, considering Callum Smith beat him. Would he step back to fight Callum when he would obviously want the winner out of Bivol and Bateviev? It's a stacked division, unfortunately, for the fighters in the division. The 4 belts are tied up by the one person, or 3, obviously, with Benavidez having his now, but That's probably going to be the case with the WBO, which Callum Smith has. Maybe that will be vacated, and then Benavidez and Smith could fight for the 2 titles. But at the moment, it's obviously one of the best divisions in the world. It's obviously one of the best divisions in Britain also, if you look at the top 10 in Britain. So what's next for Buatsi could be obviously one of the big boys, or he could choose to take a step back, which would be considered a step back to him for the European title against Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon Arthur is also a perfect opponent for Zach Parker, and I think Zach Parker against Lyndon Arthur would be a great fight. I think it'd be a good fight for a brilliant belt in the European title, but Lyndon Arthur's just boxed out of his skin, getting off the floor to beat Brad Ray on the weekend, and I think he deserves a little bit of a rest, and when he has that rest, he's going to obviously have plans himself. He's a European champion now. He wants to defend that title and make as much money as he can, but that European title also knocks on the door with a great WBC rating, which will put him in the mix for people like Benavidez himself. So it's exciting whatever comes next for both fighters, but they're certainly not short of opportunities. So the next thing I'm going to speak about is my mate Max Kellerman again, and the ring show, let's say. Might as well just mention the whole show, because I've got it on here on the screen next to me, and the debate is Pacquiao Mayweather, and I'm listening to Max Kellerman say, you know, he's 48 years of age, but if you're a boxing person, then wanting to see people 48 years of age in a ring in a competitive fight is a big problem, and you are the problem. I don't want to see Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao anywhere near a boxing ring. They're past the best. They're going to end up getting hurt. Someone's going to end up getting hurt because they're getting in the ring at this age. And it's okay saying it's an evenly matched fight. I'm fine with evenly matched fights. I was fine with the Roy Jones-Mike Tyson exhibition because it was an exhibition. It's not a competitive fight. I was fine with it because they're both evenly matched. They're both with big gloves on, and it's controlled because it's an exhibition. I was fine with that. I'm not fine with Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao fighting now when they're both in the late 40s, nearly 50. And I get it, they're trying to promote it. I get it, they're kissing ass. That's what they do all the time. I'm watching the show with Malik Scott on, Mike Coppinger, and this shady football fella on the screen next to me. And it's got to be just for clicks and clickbait to get views to the channel. It's got to be, because some of the stuff they're saying is just ridiculous. And you want to make yourself known or have people believe or bluff your way through boxing when you've never actually done it, but make people think that you're an expert on boxing and you care about boxing and you love boxing. Show it in your reasoning. Show it by not wanting to see these fighters in the ring at the age of 48 and 50, by not calling them world-class fighters at the age of 48 and 50, because they're not a shade of what they were, pardon the pun. They're not a single shred of what they used to be. They're shells of what they used to be, and they're going to end up getting hurt, because boxing is not the game where you stay and you overstay your welcome. It's always one fight too many in boxing. It's never one fight too soon. It should be one fight too soon. This one fight too many. I've got no desire whatsoever to see Mayweather Pacquiao. The first fight was 5 years too late, and that was probably, what, 7-8 years ago. They're just waiting too long and trying to rinse everything out of these men until they get hurt, and neither of them need the money. So it's all ego, and it's all ego and maybe a bit of greed, and I just don't agree with it, and I don't understand why people like this sitting on shows are talking the way they're talking about it, trying to big up and kiss ass over it and make it sound dead appealing, like it's, oh, you know, they've still got it. They haven't still got it. There's a reason why they're both retired. So there's actually not too much boxing on this week. There's a tournament up in Hull with GBM boxing, and it's an 8-man super middleweight tournament, and when I heard about it and read about it, it looks good. There's a £25,000 prize money for the fella that wins it on the night. And it reminded me of all the old tournaments, all the prize fighters, all the Super 6, all the World Series, the one Brother Callum won, the Muhammad Ali Trophy, which Inoue won and Usyk won. I think tournaments are great for boxing. I think it ties up a lot of the boxers' time, but they're great for boxing. It also reminds me of the Contender show, which I did, which was a tournament, and I think the Contender was brilliant. It was something that I loved. It was something that I really was proud of being on, and something that I watched myself both before and after I was on it. I think with this tournament, fighting in the one night's tough. I think when you're having 3-round fights or 4-round fights, then another one after, then another one after, you've got to go up and down and warm yourself up and come down and warm yourself. I think it's tough on the body then. That's what the old prize fighter tournaments used to be, but I do think they're a great idea for boxing. And I think should someone be able to put a big prize money up, you'd attract even better fighters into these type of tournaments. But this is a great start. It'll be on DAZN on Saturday night on Hull, and you should tune in and watch it, because I'm going to be there myself, and I think it'll be great.